Call the Citizens Advisory Committee to order. We'll have a roll call of members.
For roll, I'll call Chair Damon Alexander.
Present.
Vice Chair Quill. Present. Randy Ball.
Present.
Fred Burks.
Here.
Frank Flores.
Present.
Margaret Hill. Sandra Olivas.
Present.
Randy Wilson.
Here.
Cassie Levy is excused. We have quorum.
Very well. After public comments, we'll have public comments now. Any public comments? We'll have Mr. Robert Porter.
Honorable Chair, committee, good people. I just wanted to say thank you for last meeting. I saw some very positive, informative conversations, and I'd like to see much more of them. Thank you very much.
Okay. Next, we'll have Mr. Harry Hatch.
I put in for 2 times to speak, one on the first issue and one on the fourth issue. The first one regarding the public areas and public access. I don't know if anybody has actually thought about this, but there are some people in the world that are actually allergic to marijuana. I am one of them. It was not a big deal to me until I ended up with idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. And now, just getting in the near proximity to any smoke, especially one that I'm allergic to, being the cannabis, it turns me into a little bit of a problem, like almost going to the hospital. I had an issue up on the college during the Indian powwow. They were smoking some in one area of the powwow, and I had to leave the building because it was starting to affect me. So I just want, when you talk about public and public areas, take into consideration that there are some people that are not just allergic to smoke and smoke itself, but to the actual cannabis itself. Can I continue to 4, or am I limited to 3?
If you're finished with your,
1.
Yes, 1, you'll get a reset of your time.
All right,
for number 3, agenda item 3.
This is on a similar topic in the smoking in public areas. Now, we're already in the midst of trying to do away with tobacco. And now we're bringing marijuana into the issue as smoking. So anything that issues to tobacco is probably going to issue to marijuana as well, because it is smoking. And having been a fire investigator, I can tell you, smoking is bad because the smoke ain't supposed to be in your lungs. I hate to tell you that, folks, but it don't. It does things like this to you. I had 40 years as a fire investigator, and I ended up this way. All because we weren't using self-contained breathing apparatus at that time. So when you start talking about the consumption in public areas, you're going to have to think about what is going to happen in the future as it refers to smoking. That's all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. William?
Sorry for the ineligible handwriting. I kind of chicken scratched it last minute as I came through the door. I had a concern about last meeting, and just from a show of hands, I'd like to know how many on this committee came away with the idea that if we ban cannabis in San Bernardino, we will be ineligible for grant funding in the future from the state. Nobody came away with that?
We heard it.
Oh, that's what you heard.
We
But
heard
this is what I'm asking is, my question is this a deliberate misdirection? Because you see, you will not lose any grants that the city is currently eligible for. What you will be losing is grant funds that are made available through the taxation of regulating cannabis and marijuana. So when they say we're going to give $5 million in the future to police forces to help them deal with regulating, well, if you ban, you won't be eligible for any of that money. But you'll still be eligible for funds that you currently are. And I left with a real sour taste in my mouth after last meeting because I feel that that was an intentional misleading to a lot on this committee of people that are unaware of these types of things, kind of being rushed through, hurried, for the agenda of a company that really isn't a marijuana consulting firm. This is a tax auditing firm. They will financially benefit from allowing dispensaries because they will be the ones auditing in the future to make sure that they're paying the taxes. So I just want to make sure that what you're being told and what you understand is correct and true. That you're not just being told half-truths, that you're being hurried through this thing to possibly push through something that may already be written. Just something to keep in mind. Thank you.
Okay, items for review, discussion, and possible action tonight. We're going to have a presentation on personal cultivation in residential zones and marijuana consumption in public areas by Jim Montes.
Sorry I didn't get my PowerPoint up in time, but hopefully I can translate this all quite
You don't
effectively.
Have your PowerPoint?
I didn't get the technical aspect of it worked out with him, so
Do
I
you
apologize.
need a little time to get your PowerPoint squared away?
If you would like, Chair, that would be fine. We didn't have a time to review it in advance, which was what I had asked. We typically want to see PowerPoint presentations in advance, but if you're happy to have it loaded now, we can probably get that done in a couple of minutes and she could walk through it.
If we don't mind.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
because there wasn't time to print the material or get in advance, that's why I had said to just do a verbal presentation.
Since she didn't have time, can we get her PowerPoint next week, the
Absolutely.
printout?
Sure.
That would be helpful. Thank you,
Yeah.
Mark.
Okay, while we deal with this technical issue, we will move forward on to action item number 2, personal cultivation in residential zones, cultivation discussion ordinance. Mr. Eaton, I believe you have a presentation for the committee.
Correct. It did not necessarily complete a presentation
Right.
in that the slides are direct response to some questions that were asked of last week,
Correct.
and then that was to be a catalyst for further conversation.
Correct. So if we can move forward with that, I appreciate it.
So the first few questions that were to be addressed was some definitions. California Department of Education defines school, and the reason why we're discussing schools, daycares, and centers, they are the sensitive use areas as defined by Proposition 64, and the sensitive buffers that would be considered with regards to ordinance development. So the term school refers to all educational institutions that have the following characteristics: have one or more teachers, have an assigned administrator, are based in one or more buildings, and contain enrolled or prospective enrolled students. Daycare centers. Daycare centers were defined by the health and safety codes. And the reason why I put both of these is there's slight difference between a daycare facility and a daycare center. And the sensitive buffers are for the lower one as defined. It means any child daycare facility or other than other than a family daycare home, including infant center, preschool, extended daycare facilities, and school-age care centers. And then the youth center is as defined by the Health and Safety Code. Means any public or private facility that's primarily used to host recreational or social activities for minors, including, but are not limited to, private youth membership organizations, clubs, social service, teenage club facilities, video arcades, or similar amusement park facilities. So as we move forward with discussing ordinance developments, these sensitive use buffer or sensitive use areas should be considered. And I wanted to make sure that the definitions were available and clear for discussion. So the next question that was posed by the committee last week was how much cannabis can be possessed in a residence at one time. And although this is not clearly and specifically defined in any of the codes, the health and safety code here does say 11362.2A2 of the health and safety code. The living plants and any marijuana product produced by the plants in excess of 28.5 grams are kept within a person. So the reason why that is highlighted is the state acknowledged that cultivation of cannabis plants for personal use will most likely produce and make a resident possess more than the 28 grams that the law has allowed for. And these two sections really kind of support that a resident should be allowed to possess any amount of inventory that those 6 legal plants possess or create. And as long as you're not in the public and it is secured in your residence, it should not warrant seizure or arrest for that. The next question that was posed by a committee last week: could residents located near a school be prohibited from personal cultivation activities? And again, this is not specifically and directly addressed in the state laws, the various state laws. However, personal cultivation of marijuana under paragraph 3 is allowed, and which, if you extrapolate a variety of different rules, personal cultivation in a resident's home cannot be prohibited by local or state government. That's a right granted to the residents or resident. And however, outdoor cultivation may be prohibited or regulated reasonably. So it is the interpretation of the League of Cities and the police officers or Police Chiefs Association in that you will not be able to prohibit any cultivation in any resident nearly or around a school within that sensitive buffer. However, you would be able to create some type of ordinance to address cultivation outside in the backyard of a resident within an area that you defined as sensitive buffer. It could be greater or smaller than the 600 feet as defined by the state. And then this is subsequent sections that support that finding. It was asked to produce some acceptable and unacceptable home cultivation activities, and although pictures are not specifically defined, the goal here was to show what would be acceptable and encouraged under the ordinance, and then the unacceptable activities on the right in the subsequent slides were activities that, although may not have been illegal in the jurisdiction that these photos were taken, but call into question some activity that would be questionable and could be subject for discussion and ordinance development. So the one on the slide on the left is like a growing closet where the electricity, the light emitted, the odor is confined in an area that is contained within a room. These could be purchased or they could be built, but it keeps the plant in a nice, safe, contained area. Slide on the photo on the right is a common area in which the plants were being cultivated, and as you can see, there's ventilation that's hanging from the ceiling and running through the house. There's electrical cords on the ground. They had placed some paper tarping over the flooring to protect flooring. There, as you can see, there was some staining and plant material and nutrients there in the corner. So the part of the goal is to create and to ensure a healthy, safe environment for all people that live in the residence that is conducting the cultivation activity. And then, so I show this picture in that this could be a point of discussion in that you may want to, as recommended in a variety of the ordinances that were shown and provided as an example, is may be recommend that non-common areas be used for cultivation. That way, the residents, whether young or old, may not be affected by the nutrients, the odors, the water, the electrical as such. Yes, sir.
On your slide on the left, do you know if those are 1,000-watt halogen bulbs in both of those?
I do not. The
And that's, appears to me that it's a commercial setup or something similar to that. What's the cost to set up that system right there? Do you know that?
I do not.
Okay. If we're going to, that's not realistic for a person growing 6 plants for himself to have a system like this set up. But I'd be curious if you don't. You're showing pictures that you know nothing about as far as what equipment they're using. That's what I'm trying to get at. Do you know what kind of system that is?
The goal isn't to discuss the equipment itself. It's to discuss and create discussion as to how you choose to create an ordinance so the cultivation activity could take place in a home. I'm not endorsing either one of these. I'm just saying that in the situations that were discussed in these particular, the one on the left was clean, was self-contained, and did not cause any problems, and were not in violation of local ordinances. The one on the right was in fact in violation of a couple local ordinances and was problematic for the residents. It's for discussion. It's not for specific
All right.
equipment.
These are the ones that came from your background, Colorado? Is that where these photographs came from?
They came from a variety of different sources.
All right. Sorry.
And again, these are not to encourage, but to create discussion with regards to how the city would like to choose to create an ordinance to address this. And again, yes, sir.
Yes, thank you. With the information I've been studying since we started this, I see reference to Los Angeles and San Diego and the state law. And I'm reading that outdoor growing is legal, or the potential for it is legal in the state law and some of the other counties and cities that are looking at this. If I understood you correctly, you're saying that our law or what we're proposing here does not allow any outdoor use. I'm trying to define, are we, for discussion purposes, are we favoring or not favoring outdoor growth?
No, that has not been discussed. That's the goal of this committee, is to discuss
Okay.
that. That has not, I'm just talking about indoor cultivation right now, and have not addressed outdoor at all. That's something for the committee to address.
Okay, thank you.
And again, I wanted to show the, if the, this is a purchased growing closet, as you will, and how it closes up. The one on the right is in a basement that was, a room was created. You can see where they had tried to partition off a portion of the basement, and there was electrical violations, some water usage violations, and construction that was not to code. And then again, on the left, this is not in a closet. This is just in a room. It was in a growing tray to collect the water to make sure that it didn't run. It was well ventilated. The light was positioned appropriately and secured appropriately. the electrical lines were safe and tucked away. And again, the one on the right was a room that was partitioned off to create a smaller room. The construction was done so in violation of local code. And then there was some problems with water damaging the floor, and of course the nutrients there available to the children that were in the residence. So I show these as just as discussion in that there could be a variety of different growing activities in a residence. The goal is to encourage and allow cultivation and to make sure that it's done in a safe, reasonable manner for everyone in the residence, and to make sure that the water usage and the power usage and the nutrients and the odor mitigation is all done within reason to reduce quality of life complaints by neighbors and hopefully to prevent and to reduce the number of calls that police department and code enforcement agencies would have to address during the course of the day. I'd be glad to answer any questions with regards to these slides.
Member Hill, then we'll go to Member Wilson.
Okay, thank you. I just have one quick question. Is there a concern for fire safety?
Yeah, yes, there's always concern with fire safety when you are bringing in large loads of electricity that either the electrical box for the house is not prepared to handle, or if you're running electrical cords all over the place. The goal is not to discourage the activity of cultivation. The goal is to encourage that it's done so in a safe, reasonable manner to prevent further problems. And regulations are always designed to address public safety and public health. And most certainly the electrical load that typically is brought in to address, although we're only talking about 6 plants, but the wattage could be concerning for the type of house and the age of the home and the type of the electrical box that is equipped there.
Yes. You're saying under 11362.2A, we as a committee are not allowed to ban indoor grows at all under the state law?
Correct.
But we can regulate.
You can reasonably regulate, but you cannot ban or prohibit.
Under that question, under an no measure O kind of ties your hands on some things, but this, never mind, I'll have to research it more. Never mind.
I think I'm going to look at this more in let's go in a different kind of direction with this. We're worried about the wattage, but yet there's air conditioners and windows that can't handle the wattage that cause fires. The typical medical marijuana user won't have the money to spend to do something like that, like the room, okay? The personal cultivation things that I have looked at that I know people have, they're usually in a closet. Just in an old closet, and they put up plastic. And I can understand the code enforcement issues, like running all these electrical cords and this, that, and the other thing. I think we have, as of in our codes now, just the building codes that we already do have now. But if we go around, how are we going to go to everybody's house and check this? That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And I feel like we already have the building codes in place because they're already there, the safety codes for buildings in the first place. Because if that was the case, then you need to go to all these houses that have these portable air conditioning units in them, hanging out the windows that can't handle that. The blow breakers if you turn on the air conditioner and the bedroom light. So I just think, and those personal grow closet things, those are fabulous if you have that kind of money. But like I said, the typical medical marijuana user who has PTSD or whatever other health issue they may have can't afford $1,000, $2,000 to put in something professional looking with all that other fancy stuff. Now, as far as them ruining their floors, they're their floors, because you can't grow if you are a renter and the owner doesn't allow you to. You can't grow. Okay, that could be a reason for eviction as a property owner. Now, as far as mitigating the smell, you know, what are we going to do when these big major operations set in and they're growing thousands of plants? You're going to smell it. I'm sorry. It's just a fact of life at this point. I can drive down the street and smell it. Okay, because people are already growing. So we really need to get real about this as far as the indoor grows. You know, I'm really, and I'll be honest, I am not really for the outdoor grow thing because I think it's a real public safety issue as far as the owner growing the product. It's like throwing gold out in the middle of your backyard and hoping nobody takes it, as far as I'm concerned. That's my thought processes on it. But we already have the codes in place, people. The building codes, they're in place. If you burn down your house and it's a code violation, your insurance isn't going to pay for it anyway. So I just think we need to be really honest about the cost for a personal grow, setting up a closet like the one that's with the fancy glass and all that. Oh my goodness. I'd like to have that just for some pineapple plants I have. But you know, I just think we need to be very real about this. This is just like way out there to me. These pictures. I mean, they're just, I can't see anybody in San Bernardino doing anything like that. Okay, they're going to convert a closet. They may build a closet to do it, but to do something that, we already have the building codes in place. Now I'm rambling. I'm done.
Member Wilson.
Our building codes aren't going to keep somebody from growing marijuana if they want to grow. However, the marijuana grows I've been in through my career have never fallen under any code. The breakers that are broken by the air conditioning, you go out and reset it and go back in and turn your blender off and then your air conditioning works. However, in the marijuana grow, especially if you're doing it for clandestine purposes or whatever, you simply go out there, bypass the breaker, turn on your two 1,000 watt halogen bulbs, and you start cultivating your 6 plants. This pulls a tremendous amount of electricity. It heats up the wires in the house. It eventually will actually catch your house on fire. And if it's in an apartment complex, it's going to burn all the neighbors' houses down too. If we're going to allow this, which personally I think is kind of ludicrous, then we need to regulate it. If they want to grow marijuana in their house, they come down to the city, apply for a permit. We send out the marijuana code enforcement police, have them check their structure, what they have set up, see if it is compliant, see if it's safe. Maybe give them some brochures on how to store their chemicals safely. Because, I mean, it's just a big bucket of worms, especially if you have, you know, 5 or 6 houses in a row that are growing this stuff unregulated. And they turn around and give it or sell it to the dispensaries, which is again unregulated. It's just going to create more of a problem. So any regulations or anything we can put on them to keep it safe for the community and just make it where we more compliant is going to help. The smell, personally, I cannot stand marijuana smell, especially when it's growing. And it is a big problem. If I lived next to a house that grew it, yeah, it would be a quality of life issue for me. So it needs to be regulated.
Thank you. Go ahead, Member Flores.
I believe we have a lot of laws in place already, and I think putting that strain on the community, you know, and criminalizing some of these people, I mean, I believe that there should be, you know, a code to the electrical and the water, and understand that safety, but getting a team to go out and search people, or, you know, check people's houses, I think we could use our resources better than, you know, than that. That's just my thoughts.
Okay. Anything more, Mr. Eaton? Oh, I'm sorry.
I just have one question. How many code enforcement officers do we have?
6.
6 total?
I think it's 6.
Between code individuals with the title of code enforcement, there are 6, and then in community policing under the police department, they regulate a different set of codes. There are also 6 of those officers.
So if we decide that for anybody who's going to grow, they need to come in and get a license from the city, do we have, or will we have, a dedicated code enforcement officer that goes out and checks these grows, personal grows, in their homes?
I think that depends upon how the committee and city council ultimately set up the code structure.
Okay.
At this point, because we aren't regulating them or permitting them, we haven't dealt with it. But if the council and this committee decide that's the process we're going to go down, we will have staff appropriate to regulate them.
Okay, thank you.
I agree with what everybody's saying about the fire hazard. I sit on the building commission, and I know we're limited with code enforcement officers. I know it would put quite a burden for them to go out and inspect these places, but then they'd have to return a month later or 2 months later after they start a new product. I've probably visited a half a dozen homes that have small grows in their house, and I'd have to say each one of them that I've seen presents a certain amount of hazard, whether it's a fire hazard or an air quality hazard, one or the other. But I also know in this community that we have the perfect climate for outdoor. And I know that presents a little issue for neighbors and so on. But I think if we set up some limitations acceptable to our neighbors, or our neighbors may or may not even know about it, if you have a sizable yard to grow 6 plants, I think that should be considered. I think that's much safer than trying to jury rig something within your home. So that's my thought.
Okay. Mr. Eaton, do you have any more follow-up or any more issues that you wish to share with us? At this point, before, I'm not going to go into open discussion as far as policy and concern right now, members. I want to know if Ms. Montes, are you ready? Okay, we're going to go back up to Ms. Montes' discussion. And when you come up, Ms. Montes, is this an acronym for something? The INIE?
IE Normal, Inland Empire Normal. We're one of the oldest advocacy groups. We were started in 1972. We're a nationwide organization. So I am the director of the Inland Empire chapter. Thank you. Get my clicker. Okay. Well, should be okay. I got it. All right, here we go. Sorry about that. So thank you for allowing me to do this presentation. As I stated earlier, I'm with Inland Empire Normal, and we are for the responsible and reform of marijuana policy. I'm going to be talking today on personal cultivation as well as smoking in public. A lot of the stuff that's already been said I'm going to be going over, but hopefully I'll be able to explain it and elaborate on it as well. Here we go. The age and guideline requirements. Who can consume cannabis? This is mainly focused on recreational today, my presentation, but I did want to go over the medical as well. So adults 21 and older, they can use, carry, and grow cannabis, and they do not require a physician's recommendation for this. From the medical industry, it's 18 and over with a valid physician's recommendation, a county-issued medical marijuana identification card, or a primary caregiver with a valid physician's recommendation for the patients. How is cannabis consumed? There are a variety of ways that cannabis is consumed. Up there you can see somebody's just smoking a joint there, or there's edibles, there's vape pens, there's oils. There are a variety of ways that people can consume. So when we're talking about consumption, it's in any of these forms. I'm sure there's a million more being created right now as I speak. What can we do? What can we legally do? As far as recreational, we can buy, give, and sell. You can buy from a fully licensed facility. You can give up to 1 ounce of cannabis or 8 grams of concentrate. You can sell only with a license. When you're buying, your options are pretty much right now licensed dispensaries or licensed deliveries. Smoking in public. Where can you consume? You can consume on private property, and property owners can ban that as well. So if you're renting a place and your landlord says no, then we can't do it there. It's currently prohibited by state law from the public areas. Also, in non-smoking areas are ready for just like tobacco consumption. You can not smoke cannabis there. Schools, daycare centers, youth centers, and all of those things, a minimum requirement of 1,000 feet when children are present. This also includes national forests, parks, any federal lands, and while operating any type of vehicles, boats are included, jet skis, any of that kind of stuff. How much can I legally carry? Let me go back here. You can carry 1 ounce of cannabis, 57 joints, or 16 carts. Carts are what are used with for vaporizing vape, and that's an average 500 milligrams. You can carry 3.5 4-ounce containers of Medibles Canna Butter. You can carry 80 packs of gummy bears, 40 brownies, 32 peanut butter cookies. So there's a lot of things that you can carry that'll still keep you under the legal limit.
Could you go back over that again?
You know, I know.
I'm sorry.
There's a link there that I was trying to click on that shows it's really cool. But sorry about that word cool. But yeah, you can carry an ounce of cannabis. So we're talking about just the flower in itself.
Ounce of cannabis, right?
The same, like the equivalent to that would be 57 joints.
So you can carry 57 joints.
And you're still cool. Yeah. 16 carts. So those are concentrate carts. So that people use with vape pens and things like that. Let me see. 80 packs of Edipure gummy bears. 40 brownies. Those are 200 milligram brownies. Or 32 peanut butter dip cookies. Those are 250 milligrams. So you can carry quite a lot currently. When driving and riding, if you're under the influence of cannabis while operating a car, boat, vehicle, or any other vehicle, a law enforcement officer can pull you over and conduct a sobriety test. And this is not just for the drivers, it's for the passengers alike. And I believe the fine is $70. You can carry your cannabis, but it must be in an approved sealed package or container in the trunk. So it's basically the same as alcohol. If you are a medical user with a valid medical user rec, you can carry an open container. There's no crossing state lines, even if it's legal in the state that you're traveling to. Can I grow at home for recreational purposes? You can have, yes you can. You can have 6 plants in your private residence or grounds at any one time. What I wanted to go over before I continue this is indoor. A lot of people get confused on the indoor and outdoor thing. A lot of people think outdoor just means outside of your house, but you can have some kind of a setup outside of your house and it's still considered indoor. And there are also different types of lighting and things too. So when you're looking at lights, there's people that use the sunlight and then they just do a mixed light. So it's not always going to be electrically charged the whole time. But that is kind of one of the benefits of being outdoor, and we do have the perfect climate over here. So as long as you have the walls and it's not visible and you meet all the other requirements, it's still considered indoor, but you can create that effect outdoor. Does that make sense? I think that's where people get confused a lot. So back to the for recreational purposes and growing. This includes planting, cultivating, harvesting, drying, etc. And I think you went over that earlier. It must be in a locked space and not visible to the public. Cities and counties may prohibit outdoor cultivation but cannot ban indoor cultivation. Localities that ban personal outdoor cultivation or commercial cannabis operations are ineligible for law enforcement and public service grants offered through the tax money to be recouped from recreational marijuana sales. So that's that whole Prop 64 thing that we were talking about. Also, I wanted to let you know when you are creating these ordinances, the city of Fontana right now is being sued by the DPA and the ACLU because they created an ordinance, or they put an ordinance in place that was too restrictive. And I think that's kind of what he was getting to. And we do have to consider all things. I can send you guys information on that, but they were asking them to register. They have extensive fees. There's a long list of things that they were doing that they're currently being sued for and looking at that. So just like we already know a lot of people are doing it. I agree. We already have a lot of ordinances in place, a lot of codes in place to protect that. But, they're asking for the people to be inspected as well. So you had to open your home to the city and registering and background checks. And that's kind of the position that they're at right now. So I think that knowing that we're ahead of the game, we can think about this thoroughly. I think, again, like she was talking about, embracing it is really important. I mean, it's here. How can we make this work? I think you guys can offer workshops. You can require workshops. You can team up with people so that you can educate the people that don't know the options that they have, that they can create a safer grow for themselves. Thank you very much for your time. Oh, by the way, there's a cultivation workshop that the state's offering here, and it'll be here on November 30th. So it's for cultivators licensing.
We have a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
Member Hill.
Thank you, and thank you for that information. My big concern, and every time I listen to a presentation, I'm concerned. I'm concerned with everybody, but I'm really concerned with the 18 and younger. So if someone is in a car, with children, smoking with children, is there a penalty? Just even having.
You can't be smoking in the car with children. I mean, if it's medical, yes. But then I think you're going to go down another road. Then you're going to get pulled over. There's going to be a sobriety thing. And are you endangering your children? I think that kind of goes down another road.
But couldn't the medical also make you intoxicated?
Yes, and respectfully, I'm going to say just the same as opiates and other drugs that people use. Unfortunately, it's kind of the way people are. We have to be responsible no matter what we're taking and what we're using. I also agree that there is no responsible drinking. So, we have to be careful and use good judgment.
So as we come up with what we plan to submit to the city, even if it's medical marijuana, would it be, again, out of the ordinary to put something in place that would protect our children?
I don't think it's ever out of the ordinary to want to protect your kids. I don't think that anybody that uses, grows, or sells marijuana, I don't think that their direct intention for the most part is to harm children. So I think that the industry as a whole is very, would embrace that. It's just how restrictive we make it. It's a funny thing, I have 6 kids, and they never want to do anything that their parents are doing. I'll tell you that right now. You know what I mean? It's like if your parents are doing it, you don't want to do it. If your parents are wearing something, you don't want to wear it. And we have that perfect opportunity to educate our kids now and be upfront with them and teach them what the right way to do things is and what the wrong ways to do things are. And that's one of the reasons why I'm an advocate, because I had to teach my kids that if there's something that you don't like, if there's a law that you don't like, you just don't go break it. You stand up and you try to change it.
Thank you.
I have a question. You said on page 3, it says schools, daycares, youth centers must be a minimum of 1,000 feet when children are present.
Yes.
I didn't see that caveat. No one's ever spoke about that caveat before. It's just 1,000 feet, period.
Right.
So-
That is how it's written. That's how I read it in the state law. Is that not correct, sir?
That is correct, and it was in my slide. There is a caveat as to when children are present.
And a lot of that could be because there are different events and things that go on where maybe children aren't going to be present, like recreational centers that you have, maybe weddings or quinceañeras, or who knows what else is going to go on there.
So is that for just smoking, or is that for
Any consumption of any cannabis product.
is that for dispensaries, 1,000 feet, period?
Oh no, we're talking about safe use buffers. Those are completely, that's different. We're talking about, like, I can't walk up to a school and do that. We're not talking about establishing a business there.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, member.
The state law requires that you can't even smoke cigarettes in a car with a minor. That's the state law. And I don't think this would be any different. And, honestly, there's a police officer present. How many times have you pulled over somebody for smoking a regular cigarette in a car with a child?
I can't recall ever having pulled someone over for smoking a cigarette in a car with a child present. However, smoking marijuana, whether you have the medicinal use or not, it's still illegal under the law to operate a vehicle or be in a vehicle while smoking.
Okay. Well, Commissioner Hill's concern is smoking with a child or children in the car. And if I'm hearing that you're not pulling people over for smoking a regular cigarette in a car with a child, that causes me some concern. Because I'm a smoker. I smoke cigarettes. I'll be the first one. I got them in my pocket. But I never have ever smoked in a car with any of my children. Now they're in their 30s, or even with my grandchildren in the car. I don't smoke in my home because I have grandchildren. But now to hear that you guys don't pull people over for
I'm speaking for myself personally there, not for every
okay.
officer in the state of California. I'm just saying.
No, I'm saying, well, we're talking about San Bernardino. That would be an interesting thing, is to know how many people you've actually pulled over. Now, I drive trucks for U-Haul during the day. I move trucks around all over. People are lighting up, okay? They're lighting up. Today, as a matter of fact, I was in Fontana. Guy lit up. Cop parked right beside him in the lane, not even paying attention. He's smoking weed. I can smell it. See, these are the issues that Commissioner Hill has.
There is another distinction between ingestion of a tobacco product and ingestion of a marijuana product.
No, they were smoking weed.
Well, I understand that, and I've already said that that's illegal. But I'm saying that operating a vehicle while under the influence of a cannabinoid, alcohol, prescription opiate, all of those things are actually deemed illegal under the law, under the vehicle code.
Right.
So, but tobacco, under the influence of tobacco is not. I don't know that there is a influence level of tobacco that would make you
I understand that
lose
there is
your
not.
ability. So
okay, I understand.
I'm just trying to make sure we see that distinction there between the two.
Right. Okay, let me make it very clear. It is against the law in the state of California to smoke a tobacco product with a minor in the vehicle.
And then I would imagine that would be an infraction under the vehicle code, yes.
Now, with marijuana, people are smoking in vehicles, and that's why I can see where Commissioner Hill is concerned about that. issue. So if we're looking at tobacco being consumed in vehicles and people aren't getting cited, then I can see where she's concerned that they won't be cited for smoking marijuana in a vehicle. Is that your concern, Commissioner? That's where I was headed with
I'm
this.
sorry, that is definitely my concern. You know, not to put any rules or regulations that's out of the ordinary, but just want to make sure.
Yeah,
our
it
kids
is
are safe.
illegal to consume or be under the influence of a cannabinoid while operating a motor vehicle in California.
Member Ball?
I think that we all agree those are concerns, but I don't think that that's this committee's concern because we're not law enforcement and we're not making laws for operating motor vehicles. So I really, yes, it's a concern. I just don't see how it's ours to discuss and make regulations for now. We got some stuff we can actually do, and that's just not one of them, I don't believe.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Does anyone have any more questions for our guests? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. With that being said, personal cultivation and discussion and ordinance. So I need to know how this committee needs to move forward on what they want to do as far as ordinance on personal cultivation. And let's start with indoor cultivation and what would you like to do? Member Wilson?
Well, since we can't ban them, I would propose that any person in the city of San Bernardino that wishes to have an indoor cultivation must first apply for a city permit. The indoor grow would then follow under at least a yearly inspection at the city's unannounced visits, basically, not calling them up, say, I'm on my way. And that way, one, the city could, with all this money that we're going to be getting from the marijuana industry, we can pay for the code enforcement people to go in there, inspect it, to make sure they're in compliant with any building codes, any electrical codes, any fire codes that is associated with indoor operations. And with that, I would also stipulate that the grow area of the house is the only part of the house that can be inspected, unless, of course, it falls under, they find some other issues and they can call in whoever they need to clear up any other issues they find. That's what I would propose.
Any other members? Member Flores?
I propose that we just maybe offer information for cultivators, educating them on the fire hazards and electrical hazards that exist, and not going into people's homes. I just think that's I wouldn't be comfortable with that, anybody coming to my home. But definitely offer information and education for them.
Workshops, you mean?
Absolutely.
Okay. Vice Chair?
Yes, I believe I would go along with that idea also. I would set up workshops for people that are interested in having a grow in their house, giving them an opportunity to learn how to do it and do it correctly and safely. And I would also like to see outdoor growing approved with certain conditions, and I think that it can be done very effectively. I think you got to, obviously outdoors you have a lot less possibility of fire hazard or other hazards. And I think some thought given to a fenced area or a confined area within your yard is suitable. And I think that you also give the neighbors an opportunity, if they do complain, then you address the complaint. So that's what I would encourage. But I think workshops are good. I believe that code enforcement in our city is already strapped. I would not like to see a situation where you have a code officer visiting your home to approve a grow setup that you have. I think that's just too much government control personally. So I think the indoor thing is good with the proper training, and I would also encourage the outdoor grow. Thank you.
Member Hill? then Member Ball.
Thank you. I agree with everything that's said, but I'm really supportive of the outdoor cultivation also. I just worry about things that go on in homes with kids in, but also hopefully we can put together, or someone can put together a brochure that we can pass out in all of our schools, make it available, throughout. And I'm sure that'll come under the education section there, but I think we need to make sure we distribute enough information in this city that everybody, whether they're 5 years old or 50, will know the challenges or success or anything else with marijuana. Thank you.
If the members could do me a favor, we're just on the indoor right now, because I'm trying to keep notes on what you all are saying. So if you can just restrict your comments right now to just the indoor and how we're going to address that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the idea of code enforcement being involved either. I feel like we have an opportunity now to have it not be the criminals against the police department and have a way that people can get education without being ostracized, without having to feel like they're doing their underground. I feel like you would have more people hiding and trying to get away with it if you have this code enforcement instead of people openly being able to seek education and have somebody come in and show them how to do something and not worried that they're now going to get cited and not be able to grow anymore. I think we have an opportunity to let people learn how to do this safely without a fear of being in trouble, that once you add code enforcement, you're discouraging people from coming forward to get the information to do it right.
Yes, Member Olivas.
I'm all for indoor grows. I also sat on the Board of Building Commissioners. So I know what there's, along with Commissioner Quill. I believe that the information on how to do it safely, how to do everything, a lot of people don't have time for workshops, but I mean, they're a good thing if you want to do them. But like all the information in the city, it's go to our website. Go to our website. We'll show you how to grow it safe. We'll read and how to grow it safely. Throw a YouTube video up on there and let's call it a weekend. You know, this is not rocket science. You know, and we're not going to have those fancy things that we saw pictures of. But and so if we just put it up on the website, we don't need to pay code enforcement to go out. If there's an issue, I'm sure somebody's going to complain and code enforcement will be at your house. I'm all for smaller government. Code enforcement's got more important issues to deal with.
Member Burks.
I don't want to put that pressure on the police or code enforcement. They have enough to do. This is San Bernardino. I mean, there's murders happening. Why are they going to go to someone's house and tell me plants they're growing? I mean, they have more important things to do.
Member Wilson.
Except I'm the lone wolf here. We go to people's houses every day in the city to check out permits for their room additions, for any construction you're going to do. If you have an indoor distillery that you have to apply with the state to have a distillation or a distillery in your house, and they come out and inspect it. If you put out a workshop for some of these people to learn how to grow this stuff, they're not going to attend. They're going to grow in 5-gallon buckets. They're going to have water hoses running from their neighbors' houses. They're going to pull electricity from every neighborhood, every neighbor in the area to power up their 1,000-watt sodium light bulbs. And then not only that, you have all the pesticides they're going to be putting on their plants because they got some sort of weevil on it. It's going to contaminate the inside of the house. Their children are going to be there. They're going to be exposed to this stuff. There's all kinds of studies out there and materials that shows you what pesticides can do to people. If we want to have indoor grows, fine, but I believe they need to be inspected. Even the people that apply for the permit are probably not going to grow up properly, but still yet we have some sort of control. And if we're going to get all this revenue from this marijuana that everybody's saying we're going to get, hire the people to do it, to go out there and inspect them. They don't want them in the house, don't grow the marijuana.
Through the chair, I do want to note that we, as we addressed at the beginning of this meeting, that we will need to recess briefly so that the city council can report out of the closed session that they just recessed from. I do note that the mayor as well as council members are standing in the hallway, so this may be a good time to take a break to do that recess.
Okay, I call the committee at recess, and we'll call them back on again at whenever the city council's done. Okay. I don't want to put Captain Moss on blast, but no, we're ready to get back in order. What I'm going to do here is open it up for public comment. Again, I'm going to have 2 speakers, and if anybody wants to come up, I have Carmen Rowe, and then 1 other speaker if you so desire, because we want to keep this open and dialogue with the community open as opposed to closed. So, Ms. Rowe.
Thank you. I very much appreciate you letting me get up here and speak. I've been listening to you guys, and I've been listening to your concerns, and I heard Randy, and I just wanted to know, if you've seen a picture of what 6 marijuana plants look like. And so here's the picture of just, we're talking about 6 plants. I don't think this is too much to be out in your backyard. I don't think that it's going to use too much electricity. I don't think this is really the regulation that we need. The regulation that we really need to be talking about is the commercial regulation. People are going to grow marijuana in their house or in their yard, whether we like it or not. We might as well not ban any of it so that we can take full advantage of the federal dollars that could be very much used in this city. I would also like to say that I do appreciate all the comments I've heard today, and I do appreciate this committee. But I have I'm a mother. I have 2 kids. One's 10 and one's 11, and I have this motto. If I had to have my kid come home with a bottle of opiates, a bottle of Jack Daniels, or this marijuana plant right here, I'd take this plant over any of those all day long. So while we are concerned about our children, I'm more concerned for the children who have had sports injuries and are hooked on opiates. I'm more concerned for the children who are being prostituted out on Baseline. I'm more concerned for the children who are homeless and their parents have neglected them. So if we could, and also I'd like to say that there's a lot of homes out here that are older and that don't have electricity that are up to, current day standards. And those people, it would take those people out of being able to grow their own plant. And I don't really think that's fair. What we need to stick to is let's regulate commercial cannabis. Let's collect the tax dollars. Let's give back to the community, and let's give the people what they ultimately wanted, was some real regulation and marijuana in the city of San Bernardino. Thank you.
Mark.
Esther Meyer. Go for it. God, I would love to be talking about commercial regulation and that kind of stuff, but the shameful thing is that the city has given you an extremely narrow scope to look at, which is everything outside of what Measure O is. Measure O is the regulation for the city of San Bernardino. Make no mistake about it. That's the way it is. That's the reason why you're here. That's the reason why we're talking about everything outside of Measure O. For anybody to be talking about anything that would exclude or override Measure O, it would be lovely. Boy, I tell you what, everybody in this room would love to be talking about dispensaries and commercial cultivation and that kind of thing, but the reality of it is that's not what you're tasked to do. You're tasked to take a look at individual small things that are actually not covered with a Measure O. And to beat this you know, when it comes to personal growth, I believe that everybody should be able to grow their own in the way that they feel that they should be able to grow it. They're either going to be able to grow it successfully or they're not going to be able to grow it successfully. But it is important that they grow something that is not unhealthy for their own consumption. And when it comes to regulating it, you know, as far as inspections and that kind of stuff, you can say or do whatever you want. But the reality of it is people are going to be able to do it or they're not going to be able to do it. And if you allow them the courses that they need, and it doesn't even need to be anything done by the city. I actually learned how to grow going to a grow class at a collective some 10 years ago. I was going to the very first, basically with what would be called a farmer's market, where there was home growers that showed up at these farmer's markets. And it was absolutely awesome. The growers that actually grew a great product actually made a couple bucks, paid for some electricity, and it was good. Provided for their own family, their own needs. So yeah, the personal growth is extremely important. And yes, you should consider this seriously. Let them do with what they want. Put as few restrictions on it as possible, but still let them know that there are guidelines that they have to follow that is not going to make them sick, that's not going to make their neighbor sick or anybody else. Most people in the cannabis industry are really very conscientious. I don't know of anybody that goes out smoking in their car or even in their garage with their kids around them. Now, it does put us in the position that we do have to educate them, and I think that every single parent should do that. You know, if a parent is not capable of it, then okay, let the school districts and let them go ahead and include more curriculum that does address that. But when it comes to the individual user and the individual grower, they're a great group of people. There's nobody that's going to be out there harming anybody in any way, shape, or form. I would be far more concerned about the person who sits at the bar for 3 or 4 or 5 beers than somebody who's going to be sitting at home, or even if you allow a lounge to show up, to be smoking in a lounge. And that's something to consider. Thanks a lot.
Okay, committee. Now we must move forward with for indoor grow. We've heard several members as they have spoken. Member Wilson, as far as regulation and usage and permitting process and subject to inspection. We've heard from other members, workshops, no code enforcement entering your home, websites, YouTube, sites. So we need to rein this in and decide what we want to do. So I would entertain any type of a motion or as far as how we should permit indoor grow, either with or without inspections, with or without code enforcement going in. And may I submit to this committee, we also have to say if there's going to be a charge for this. If we say if there's going to be a permit. If not, if there's a workshop, if there's going to be a charge for that workshop, there needs to be some type of accountability in this process. There has to be some type of accountability. I don't feel that, you know, if there's going to be a permit process, then there needs to be a workshop, a foundation, so people don't burn down their houses. So going to a workshop and teaching them a little bit about electricity or teaching them a little bit how to do things and then grant them a permit may be the way to go in this particular manner. It provides them with education, what you guys want. It provides a need that's going to be covered, and a permit process that once you finish with this educational process, workshop, that you get a permit, and then that provides monitoring of who has what without going into any people or violating any of the Constitution and entering people's homes for indoor use of 6 plants. So I'm entertaining any type of thought process so we can reel this in and get this done, if that's what you're, yes, Member Olivas.
I don't think there should be a permitting process because then they have your name. And for what, you know, it's way too much regulation.
Okay.
People are making beer and their own alcohol in their homes, and that's not even regulated. I think my motion would be that indoor cultivation, with the caveat that all code enforcement, all codes and ordinances already applicable to your home are met. I don't think anybody needs to be, I would be very upset. I think it is very, very intrusive for somebody to just show up at my house. Period. I don't know how to make a motion
Okay.
to that effect, but and to have somebody licensed, then okay. See, let's go back to then everybody who's growing at home, the city has your name. Okay, this city has a reputation in the past that if you got on somebody's bad side, then you would be sought out. And I do not want to see that happen again in this city. You can say, let's pay for a permit, you got to buy a permit. How many people are going to buy a permit? I mean, we have a hard enough time people buying a permit to add an addition onto their house, for God's sakes. So I just think as long as you're going, if you're growing it inside, it has to be up to code. If your house burns down, we're going to know. Okay?
Vice Chair.
I would, I agree with what you say, and I would also like to extend on that we all know that I'm a contractor, and we take building permits out for projects that we do, and all that information is public information. If there was some sort of a permitting process for us to ask for permission to grow marijuana in my house, that's public information. You talk about people breaking into your backyard to steal pot plants or breaking into your house to steal pot. Believe me, as soon as there's a list out there with your name on it, you're susceptible to get broken into because somebody would want to come in and not only steal your plants and your products, but your fixtures and everything you have so they can build their own grow house with no permit. You know that happens because there were some newspaper articles about the mail service. People leaving out of town, they notify the mail service they're going to be out of town, whose house gets broke into. Okay, so I'm totally against the whole permit thing for indoor personal grows. I believe outdoor personal grows are acceptable, which should be acceptable. Would you like a motion?
Just on the indoors.
Okay.
You're going to the outdoor again.
Okay,
We're only going
okay,
to handle one thing
okay.
at a time here.
Okay, so I would like to make a motion.
But before you make that motion,
okay,
is there any educational component piece in this before you make your motion?
Yes, I would like to include an educational, volunteer educational program that the city might put together, or a nonprofit or some other organization that would put together to help train people to be able to do this and do it safely. So that's what I would like to see. So that's the direction I would like to go.
Member Hill.
I wasn't in agreement at first about not having a permit, but now that you've spoken on it about it, it does make sense. People will know where to go and where to steal a bush if it's midnight and they need another joint and what have you. So that makes sense because that presents another safety problem, I know, for the police. But there should be, you know, I don't know. I'm hoping we could come up with something, not necessarily to know that there are 500 people have plants in their houses, not necessarily with the address, but can you do an online, well, that's still public information. You know, I don't know. I guess I'm leaning more towards what you said. I didn't think about it in that way, but if it's good, is there any way you cannot make that public information if we do a permit? I don't know, but that would be a concern.
Based on the attorney here, is there any way that information cannot be made public?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Well, my concern, and I listened to what Mr. Quill and Ms. Oliva said about it being public information, and I don't think you would want lists because you're going to have the broke people with the lists walking around, you know, looking in backyards and things of that nature. Not necessarily broke people, the people who want to smoke, you know, want some pot. But I wouldn't want that information out because I wouldn't want anybody's life. And again, back to the children, because as I say, that's my concern. Their lives will be in danger also. But is there do you have to make a permit list public?
Any document that's generated by a public agency has to disclose that document in response to a Public Records Act request unless there is a specific exemption. There is no exemption that I am aware of for permits of that nature.
And would that keep us from getting a grant?
Which part? So the only thing to acknowledge the public speaker before, and we were discussing Proposition 64 specifically, and the prohibition or banning of any license activity. So the only thing that would prevent you from receiving a grant generated from the commercial industry is creating a ban on some type of activity, and that could, but you cannot ban any activity of residential, personal, indoor cultivation. You may choose to ban outdoor, and if you choose to ban the outdoor, then that would prohibit you from grant funding directly sourced from the commercial industry. But the registration issue, that would not prevent you from getting any grant funding. It has been done in other jurisdictions where there is a online self-registration that just makes an indication of medical or adult use and the address in which that activity is. And none of those online registrations that I'm aware of were ever generated for direct code enforcement action. They were all done so for information and to address reactive and to reduce the amount of time and services that are provided when code enforcement receives a call of a illegal grow. They can check their registry and say, no, we have that someone is registered at that location to conduct cultivation activity. That's how it was used in reactive, not direct action.
One question. Now, if someone should use the Freedom of Information Act, could they get that list?
They would be able to, yes.
Member Ball.
May I make one point of clarification too, and just to make sure, the money that is received in the commercial activity, tax revenues, anything, cannot be used for direct enforcement of personal cultivation, whether it's indoor or outdoor, just to make sure. So that any monies that are received through like a permit process, if you choose to, can be, but money that is received through commercial activity may not be used for addressing or enforcing home grows.
Member Ball.
So I'm thinking about, we're talking about 6 plants or personal use. When you go back to homebrewing beer, you get the guy that buys his Mr. Beer kit and tries to make beer, and it's bad beer and it's not sterile, and he throws it out because he can go get good beer. We're having the ability now to go get good marijuana. So the guy that's trying to wing his one plant and not getting information is not the guy that's stringing a bunch of lights up and putting all of this electrical through his house. He's the guy that's just trying to grow his plant. At the point that you're going to invest in wanting this wonderful thing for you to have, you're going to make it a hobby. I mean, there's craft beer brewing, and there's beer clubs, and there's people that are making great beer, and then there's Mr. Beer. But we're taking away the ability for Mr. Beer to want to brew in his house that day, because anyone that's going to set up a facility like that is either looking for commercial investment or it's a hobby they're going to be interested in investing into. This isn't some guy that wants to grow some plant in his house and he put 6 and went to Home Depot and bought some lights. I mean, it would die and it wouldn't be a good plant. I feel like if we're overthinking what it means to grow 6 plants in your house. This is, I want to smoke some pot in my house, or I'm sick and I want my own stuff, or this is my hobby and I want to make something fantastic. I don't think what we're looking at with these things rigged. These are people that want to either make money or that are seriously investing in a hobby. This isn't someone growing a plant in their house. I think we're overthinking what it means to grow a plant in your house.
Okay. With that being said, I'm open to let's get this indoor ordinance done. So if anybody has any motion.
My motion is that we allow 6 plants per house and that we don't regulate how you grow that plant inside by code enforcement, and that we allow people to grow their plants as they grow any other plant. And if it's going to be good, they're going to have to get it right or it's going to die.
I would second that motion.
It has been moved by Member Ball, second by Member Quill, that we allow 6 plants per household, not regulated by code enforcement. You heard the motion. Are you ready for the question? Ms. Olivas, do you have a question?
I do have one question. My question would be, would we have to also put in this ordinance, because of the Prop 64, we want to be right in line with Prop 64. We don't want to step outside that boundary, because then a lawsuit could happen. So what exactly does Prop 64 say about home growth? That was my only question.
Mr. Eaton, do you have that? Because I don't have that readily in front.
So Proposition 64 says that a local jurisdiction can reasonably regulate personal cultivation.
All those in favor vote by the usual sign of voting, which is aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed have the same right.
No.
Hearing one no, motion carried. Outdoor grow. Okay, outdoor grow, what you have to be considered is 600 feet, 1,000 feet away from any park. No, that's not true. Outdoor grow, as far as residents are concerned, it falls under a little different ordinance. So if you want to be, property lines, 10 feet from your property lines, how high you can grow them, 6 feet, 8 feet high. There's all sorts of limitations that we have to consider. Is it going to be locked by fences or not locked by fences, or is it just going to be out there in your backyard? You have several issues to consider in this particular outdoor grow ordinance. So what would you consider?
Well, through the chair, I would like to, like all of us up here, we've been doing our homework, and I came across the LA County Department of Regional Planning. They have a real nice illustration. I could have made copies and sent around, but they have a list here, just the simple regulations, if you don't mind me reading them. It says cultivation regulations: perimeter of cannabis cultivation area must be secured with a 6-foot high solid fence or wall. If the existing perimeter fencing complies with all the cannabis fencing requirements, additional perimeter fencing is not required. Cannabis plants may not exceed a height of 6 feet. Cannabis plants cannot be visible from any public right-of-way, private drive, or fire lane. Outdoor cultivation is prohibited within 600 feet of a park, library, school, daycare center, or youth center. This is what the LA County Department of Regional Planning is working around. So I guess I would just like to present that. And also the state regulation too. If you looked at the state regulation, I think it has guidelines for outdoor growth also. So that's where I'd like to start the conversation.
So that's what LA County's doing, Commissioner?
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that if the book's been wrote, don't rewrite it. I think we adopt that. That's my personal opinion.
No, it's not. Oh, Member Hill.
Thank you. If we adopt what Los Angeles is doing, I think we have a lot of conversation with a lot of people coming here from the Los Angeles area, and they'll always say to us, you know, why don't you do it the way Los Angeles is doing it? From what I heard, that's not a bad way to look at outdoor growth, but I sure like to see it 1,000 feet, not 600 feet away from parks, schools, and other places where children congregate. Thank you.
Member Ball.
Yeah, I think the 600 feet, as long as it's locked, I think of the way that if you have a swimming pool, you have to have a gate around it. Someone's neighbor's kid can't get in. And I think if we secure that no one can get in, 600 feet is enough space that unless somebody's breaking into your property, they're not going to come across it. They're not going to see it. And as long as we require a law, which I think LA did a great job on saying we got to secure it so nobody else can get in except the people intended to be there. Nobody has to see it that doesn't want to see it. I think I don't know why we're going to reinvent the wheel. That wheel looks like it's rolling.
Oh, okay, I will entertain any motion.
I'd like to make the motion through the chair. I would like to make a motion that we accept the let me rephrase this. That we do the same rules, the regulations. The perimeter of the cannabis cultivation must be secured with a 6-foot high fence or wall. If an existing perimeter fence complies with all of the cannabis fencing requirements, additional perimeter fencing is not required. Cannabis plants may not exceed the height of 6 feet. Cannabis plants cannot be visible from any public right-of-way, private drive, or fire lane. Outdoor cultivation is prohibited within 600 feet of parks, libraries, schools, daycare centers, and youth centers. That's my motion.
I second that motion.
Thank you. It has been moved by Member Olivas, second by Member Ball, that we use outdoor cultivations. Perimeter of cannabis cultivation must be within a secure 6-foot high solid fence or wall. Existing perimeter fences complies with all cannabis fencing requirements. Additional perimeter fencing not required. Cannabis plants must not exceed 6 feet. Cannabis plants cannot be visible from public right-of-way or private drive or fire lane. Outdoor cultivation is prohibited within 600 feet of a park, library, school, daycare center, or youth center. You heard the motion. Are you ready for the question?
Excuse me, Chair. I do have one question. There was no discussion about whether or not permit would be required for this, and I don't want to assume. that there's no permit required for this. The recommendation from the committee was on indoor grows that there be no permits. Is that also the case for outdoor grows?
Yes.
I just want to clarify that.
Yes. All those in favor vote by the usual sign of voting.
Aye.
Aye.
No.
I got no.
I think the 600 feet range needs to be moved a little bit further. So I'm going to say no.
No.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4 ayes and 3 noes. Motion carries. Yes. What's that?
You don't vote?
3 noes.
You don't vote?
I carry. I'm presiding. I'm
Just checking.
So, Chair, to clarify, the noes that we have are Wilson, Hill, and Burks. Is that
correct.
correct? Thank you.
Okay. What is the hour? 7 o'clock. Okay. Due to the, we're going to move forward on potential creation of subcommittees. What's that? We're going to move past 3 because of the time we're allotted, and we're going to move to subcommittee so we can get that forward as. So we're going to move to subcommittees. I'd like to create subcommittees upon this committee so you can move forward on those action items. So those action items can be addressed in a more time-efficient manner for this committee and the public at hand. So action item 3, issue of regulating marijuana consumption and smoking in public areas. That will probably be pushed till next week. And if we can have Member Hill, Member Flores, and Member Olivas, if you can do that one for next week, be a subcommittee for that.
I'm sorry, but I can't. I'll be out of town.
You'll be out of town?
Yes.
Merry Christmas.
Until Monday.
Okay. Member Wilson, can you?
Sure I can.
Thank you. So, Member Hill, Flores, and Wilson. The issue, right, next Monday, the issues of regulation marijuana consumption and smoke.
We'll need to meet the 21st or 22nd. Tuesday, Wednesday, the subcommittee.
Right. You guys get together and figure out when you guys are going to meet to do that.
Okay.
All right. And the next one after that, the next action item we have to deal with is taxation. And Member Ball, Member Burks, and Member Olivas, I think you'll be back by then? Okay. Could you handle that?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Is there any other public comment? I have a Paul Galindo. You need to come forward, Mr. Galindo.
Good evening. My name is Paul Galindo. I am president of Go Green Consultants, and I come from Sacramento, California. I'm also a consultant for Bustamante and Associates. I've been in the entrepreneurial business for about 30 years, so I've been an entrepreneur, starting new businesses and working in the real estate business for over 25 years. I've listened to your concerns about public safety, access by minors, public smoking, schools and churches, and various concerns that have directly to do with everything that you're talking about. The consulting group that I work with, we would like to bring to you in a presentation to create a model that would create more jobs, more city revenue, and put a handle on the green rush that's happening, which you're all noticing. Everybody and their mother is coming to you right now. What we're proposing is a real estate play, a plan that will consolidate activity and make it manageable to ensure manageable growth of what is going on in your industry. A real estate play must work in tandem with the creation of city ordinances and regulations. So what we're proposing is something that would be high level that we're talking about right now, but to see the level of interest on the board members. Some interesting facts were brought up. People may not be able to afford to buy lights, to be able to do indoor grows. What we're talking about is creating an economic development model that creates jobs and helps small cannabis entrepreneurs to be able to start their own grows in a regulated facility that is enclosed, that is manageable, that I feel that law enforcement may support because it's more centralized instead of it being out there like the wild, wild west, everybody growing wherever they want to. Looking at these aspects, it would be a definite income generator for the city as to how they can put a handle on this, and they could achieve the dream of, or achieve the goal of creating a nexus between the concerns that are out in the community, the concerns that were law enforcement, and the concerns that the city may have. And so it's more of a economic development plan that would serve more like a business incubator that would help people that want to grow cannabis, people who are desiring to be entrepreneurs. We know right now that there are millionaires being made right now growing cannabis and selling cannabis and doing oils and extracts and even baking and doing these types of things. This type of facility would cover all those needs, and it would be able to be regulated and controlled. We are creating something like this in Sacramento already. It's not in conjunction with the city, but it is a private venture that we are doing with our consulting group that we would love to bring to the city of San Bernardino with experts on regulations and experts on what needs to be done in the city. And that's what I wanted to talk about.
Thank you. Appreciate you sharing with us.
Mm-hmm.
Does the members have any questions for this gentleman?
Yes. Do you have a website or some place we can?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Can you share that with me?
I can't right now, but I will get it for you. I promise.
Okay.
Okay. We just came in here at high level. We really didn't want to go into the weeds with our presentation because if there is an interest from the committee, we would be more than happy to come next week with a PowerPoint presentation that would go a lot more in depth than what I did tonight.
Member Ball?
On our subcommittee, we're looking at taxes, and I would love someone to show us what we were just asking, why are some people doing it by square foot and some by sales, and it was because some are grows and some are retailers. I would love to have someone that's actually researched this more than sitting around a table with Google come show us before we decide how we want to tax it, why. I would be very interested if the rest of you would like to. I would very much like to see your presentation.
We would like to talk to you. We have real cowboys that have been to the rodeo. They just haven't read about it. They're actually doing it. So this is the type of caliber of players that we would bring to the table, and people that work in legislation. Our group has worked at the state level in helping to craft the state legislation. And so our group happens to be working with law enforcement as well. So we have a lot of inroads and different players to bring to the table that would enforce and reinforce what I'm bringing to the table right now. Any other questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Hatch?
Watch out for the Trojans bearing gifts. These people will be out there. They're going to be trying to sell us something. Don't keep looking at them. You're going to have to pay for his presentation. You're going to cost the county or the city money. Watch out. take steps one step at a time.
Ms. Rowe?
I'd like to say, please don't reinvent the wheel. Please don't make your job harder than it needs to be. Please don't waste any more of taxpayer dollars on consultants in this city. Please just review Prop 64 and let free enterprise take its course. Once we have the ground floor, then if people would like to come in after we've developed the ground floor, then maybe we listen. But this city's been duped far too many times and been led astray and been led down the rabbit hole for things that we don't need to. If anybody needs to know more about taxation or about how marijuana business runs, I'm sure there's plenty of people in this room that wouldn't mind showing you, wouldn't mind sitting down with you, and maybe wouldn't mind letting you take a tour. Thanks.
Ms. Montes?
I just wanted to say, with regard to the workshops and stuff that I'm glad you guys are going to be doing. Traditionally, like Parks and Recs have programs that they operate where there's a 70-30 split, so you guys could actually have some workshops and have somebody else do them, and people could sign up, and they're still somewhat anonymous, and take that class, and you'll be making revenue, and then having somebody from the area maybe help them cultivate and be able to have people sponsor those classes would be great. But that's typical whether it's karate or not. So the other thing I was going to say is there are a lot of free resources from NORML, from ASA, Americans for Safe Access, and people that you can get in touch with, as well as I would help you. There's Cannaregs and things like that where you can pull up that information, and it's non-biased. It's a lot of factual information. So if you need anything, please.
Yes, state your name.
Cruz Bustamante, Bustamante and Associates. The question that I have to follow up on the presentation that was made was if there was any interest by the commission to hear such a presentation, and if so, when it would be appropriate to make that presentation.
What would you be making a presentation on?
To try to conceptualize how to take the activities that are taking place to provide you an opportunity that would show and demonstrate how you don't have to necessarily be approving as a leadership entity what you may feel is being imposed on you as a state and local statute, and yet at the same time be able to provide the kind of review protocols, the kind of ways of being able to organize it, to centralize it, to provide public safety, to keep it away from kids, to keep it away from churches, that kind of a thing, and to at the same time be able to grow the economy, create jobs, and be able to bring revenues into the city.
Yeah. The only presentations that we entertain as a committee is those are on our action items. You know, if it's not on our action items, we don't entertain that unless it's but are those on our action items. You know, if they're not on our action items, then you know all the things you said is great, but we have a narrow focus that they have put us together for, and I don't want this committee to be derailed by extraneous information. There's already enough for us to do now. So if it's not an action item, I'm sorry, we're just not going to entertain it right now. I appreciate your time though.
My pleasure.
Okay. If there's no more public comment, then we will adjourn for this evening. Anything else for the members?
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes.
We had, you're correct, the council had a fairly narrow focus for the committee. There's 4 items just for everybody's reminder: the personal cultivation, which was discussed this evening; marijuana consumption, smoking in public places, which will be discussed next meeting; HDL, which is your consultant, which we did hire for the committee, next week is also prepared to talk about taxes and fees.
Right.
Because again, we're on a short time frame. So we have 2 items then for next week, consumption in public places and then taxation. And then the 4th item, which would be for a subsequent meeting, not next week, is regulation of commercial marijuana activities not covered by Measure O. So I just wanted to let the committee know on the 27th there are those 2 items for discussion.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So are we saying that we're doing taxation next meeting because we have someone that's not going to be here that you put on a committee?
That's right. You won't be here.
I'll be here on Monday because I'll get back into town at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
But I'm leaving on Friday. So I don't have this weekend. It's not going to work.
You get with your subcommittee and they'll figure all that out.
Okay, so, but you were saying that you would put her on a different committee because it would give her more time, but we're saying that's not more time. We're still going to do taxation will be next, and we're meeting this week to knock it out. It won't be
So
further.
you won't be here on that Monday to this.
She won't be here prior to that Monday to be on a committee. She'll
Okay.
be here just to show up to be at
Okay.
the meeting.
So we're talking. Let's back up then. So we're talking about taxation on the 27th of November, correct?
Yes.
I will be here. I'm not leaving until the following week.
Until December
December
4th. That's when our next meeting is after that. December.
I'll be here on the 27th.
Okay.
I will not leave until the 2nd.
Okay. Okay.
I'm a week ahead. I'm sorry.
No worries. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed have the same right. Meeting is adjourned.